Mr. Mosley is gonna be very impressed up there. Now, anyway, this morning, I wanna ask you something. How many of y'all believe down in your heart and your soul and your mind that you can do all things through Jesus Christ who strengthens you? How many really believe that? Okay, we'll see. If you'll turn to the 4th chapter of Philippians, and we'll begin reading in the 8th verse.
Four, 8.
Yes, ma'am. I want to show them my notes. The other side says, my name is Keith Nix, and I'm a president of Renewal by Anderson. See, I don't believe in wasting nothing. So, amazing, isn't it? Sometimes I amaze myself. But anyway, that has nothing to do with it. I want to get back to me for a little while, and I use me as an example because I don't want to hurt nobody else's feelings. Years ago, I had a very bad temper. I mean hairline temper. Didn't make take much. And I wasn't big enough to have a hairline take, so I got several punishments for that. So, but what happened is that God changed that. And I don't think I have that anymore. I don't think it's something, one day I went off on a guy out in the parking lot out here, but that was, I cried. Y'all remember I cried after I did it. I got down on my knees because I let my emotions get ahead of my spiritual. And that's what I find with a lot of people. They let their emotional side of them rule their spiritual side, which it should be the same. The difference is you should have the spiritual side overwhelming the emotional side. And what I've seen over the years, I see people that have ups and downs, up and down. One day you see them, they're up. One next day you see them, they're down. Up day, they're up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, we all know that circumstances are never going to stay the same in your life. Some days you pray, some weeks you pray, you read your Bible, you do every man, and it just seems like, man, everything is just going so good. In fact, it gets so good, we say, wait a minute, this can't be right. Something bad's gonna happen. Well, what you're doing is you're doubting the goodness of God. Because He's going to give you those times in your life where everything is just, man, it couldn't be no better. You know, my wife's beginning to look better all the time. She's feeding me good food. God's blessing me. I'm making all the money I want. Man, I just cannot believe it. Something's going to happen. Well, that's a natural. I don't know whether that's a natural response. I don't think I say that anymore. I just thank God that it's here. But what you're doing, you're doubting the goodness of God because you're a child of God. He's going to give you those good times. But then, everything's not going to stay the same, is it? So then you go in those times when it's kind of dry. You know, I'm praying, I'm reading my Bible, But, you know, it sounds like my prayers is going off the top of this roof here and bouncing around over here, and ain't nobody hearing them. Well, you're going to have them times. And I think one of the keys to overcoming that is accept that times are going to be hard sometimes. They just are. That's the way life is. I don't know if anybody in here can stand up and say, man, my circumstances ain't changed in the last 20 years. It just don't happen like that. But what can happen is how you respond to them. So I'm saying that I want to get to the scripture. And what has happened here, Paul has found the secret to overcoming all of that. And it is a secret. Not really, but the way people act, it's a secret. So I'll begin reading in 8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Now, what did he mean? Meditate on these things. When you look in your life at things that happen in your life, you need to look for these things. What things are true in my life? What things are noble in my life? What things are just in my life? What things are pure? What things are lovely? What things are of good report? Is there any virtue in this, what is happening in my life? Is there anything praiseworthy about it? Let me give you an example. Tornado strikes. And you have heard this so many times. They will interview somebody and it's completely destroyed their house. You know what they'll say a lot of times? But you know what the important thing is? Me and my family are safe. What's he doing? He's praising something that is a disaster. But him and his family is safe. He's not looking at what he lost. He's looking at what happened, what God did in his life. Out there in those fires. It could have been worse, they say. It could have killed a bunch of people. And it did kill some. That crashed last night. Or whenever it was. Yes, it killed 7 people. But it could have been a whole lot worse if it had been inside that mall with people inside it. So, there's praiseworthy things in everything that happens, the circumstances that happen to you. Many times I've heard it said, well, it was bad, but I learned a very valuable lesson. Isn't that amazing? Boy, it was bad. It's like a kid touching a stove. He learns real quick. I don't care how many times you tell that kid, don't touch that stove, don't touch that stove. He gonna figure it out, he gonna touch it. It's like wet paint. We just always gotta go by and put our finger in it and make sure it's wet. Like we don't trust the guy who put that sign. But we learn a very valuable lesson every time we do it. The things which you learned and received, heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. And I want you to note that Paul is in prison when he's writing this. And he's telling these people, when you look at me, rejoice, look at me and do the things that I do and what I've learned and what I've received from the Lord. What does that mean from you? Recall circumstances in which God brought you out of it. And we all have them. Each one of us have them. But isn't it funny when another circumstance comes up, we tend to forget about that. And we react emotionally instead of spiritually. And he says, the God of peace be with you. He wants you to have peace in your life. Not only, people tend to make their life, I hate to say this word, they make their life hell on earth through their own doing, instead of finding the peace and joy that a Christian should have in his life or her life. But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, now that last your care for me is flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity. Well, he was in prison, and they brought him stuff for a while, and then they cut it off. They wouldn't let him bring it to him. He couldn't get it to him. So he's telling them that. But he rejoiced. In Philippians, you'll see so many times he refers to rejoicing. Rejoicing. See, we need to rejoice when times are good. And remember that when you go through bad times and rejoice. Wait a minute, I can't rejoice in good times. Yes, you can. Remember what he said? There's always something praiseworthy in it. You got to find it. And here's what he says. Not that I speak in regard to need, for and this is a key word, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. There is the secret. Now, a lot of people, bless their hearts, when they get saved, they think everything is just going to be, oh my goodness, man, it's going to be smooth sailing from now on. And then when something happens, I've had them come back to me and say, Lord, I thought when I got saved that I was going to have smooth sailing. Man, it's worse than it was before I got saved. Well, first of all, that's not right. There's two things in play when that happens. The first thing, the devil's going to come after you. The second thing, that's a lie, because you was on your way to hell, and now you're going to heaven. So it ain't as bad as you think. And see, when you are doing things that are not godly, the devil doesn't care. But baby, when you start getting close to God, he's going to come running. He's going to be after you. That's just the way it works. And he wants to destroy any Christian, because if he can destroy you and your testimony, that's good, because you influence other people. That's one of his biggest weapons. So we have to be content. Now let me talk to you about Paul. 2 Corinthians 12 through 1:10, and I'm not going to go there. You can look it up later. But I'm going to give you the gist of what it says. Paul said that God carried him out in the desert. And he said, I had an experience with God where I experienced what he called a third heaven. I saw things that I can't even describe. I can't even say it because there's no way, I can't describe it to you how good it was. But look at here. Now let me tell you something. Most of us, as human beings, as we are, if everything just went wonderful all the time, just wonderful, we would get arrogant. And don't tell me you wouldn't, because I know you would. Well, you know, man, things are going so good, I don't think I need to go to church this week. You know, it's really happening, man. I'm prayed up, read up, man, I don't think I need to go this week. That's the devil's lie. He set you up. But he also knew that about Paul, didn't he? You know what he said right on the other page, if you'll look. He said, God sent Satan's messenger to put a thorn in his side. Why did he do that? He didn't want Paul to get the big head. You know what he told him? He said, my grace is sufficient. You know what that means? To you, no matter what you go through, his grace is sufficient. His grace that he gave you freely, even though it cost him his son on the cross. So, when times come into your life and they don't, it ain't so good, the first place, I always tell people it's going to get better. You're going to get through it. But how you want to come out on the other side is up to you. You and God. How strong is your faith? I've used this example and I'll continue to use it. But I'm going to use a new one. Kathy's got a friend that's got stage 4 cancer. She's terminal. Unless God steps in, she's going to leave this earth. I talked to that lady one day, and I have never seen such an attitude. She is still praising God. She's doing things. She's trying to win souls. She has not let that slow her down. That I could tell not one bit.
She's gonna live past her time now.
And it's past her time. Instead of going into deep, dark depression, which some people would do, she didn't. You know why? Because she is a soldier of God. I talked to that woman. She is strong in her spirit. The reason I called her to start with was to find out if she was saved, and she thanked me for calling her. But she is so strong in the Lord that she's dealing with it. She's content on what's going on. To me, that is amazing. The other one I use is Rick and Bubba. Y'all may not know who Rick and Bubba is if you don't live down in Alabama. And they, by the way, they broke up. They're no longer Rick and Bubba. Rick Burgess was his name. His 2-year-old daughter drowned in his backyard. Poop. I heard him give his testimony about it. You know what he said? He said, I don't blame God. And he called the kid's name. That kid is in heaven today. I am not turning my back on God. I don't care what happens to me. And I'm telling you, don't you let anything cheat you out of what you have got coming from God. He goes on in 12 and says, I know how to be abased. In other words, he knows how to be without. Know how to abound. You know, I remember the days we didn't have a lot to eat. But you know, we were happy. I guess we were so stupid we didn't know nobody else wasn't that way. Right, Miss Sarah? We thought everybody was like that, didn't we? And now, I've learned to live on the other side of it, the abound side, where I've got stuff to eat. I can eat just about anything I want. But you always had to remember not to be too arrogant, because God will bring it back to you. He will teach you a lesson. I never take it for granted when I sit down and eat something that I want to eat, like cabbage. I love cabbage. I give thanks for it. I like hamburger steaks. I don't care much for steaks, but I love hamburger steaks. Always have. But I would also go back to remember those days when all we had was a pot of beans and cornbread. And we put more water in the beans to make soup and make more cornbread where we could eat that the next day. Pick them oat bits of post salad. People say, y'all eat that? Yeah, we eat that. I still like a good mess of poke. Everywhere in all things I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Now, I want to answer the question. One thing you've got to know, first thing before God does not change, and He never meant for you to be up and down in your walk. And the honest way that you can change that, quit reacting emotionally to situations. React spiritually to them. What does that mean? Well, right now, you say to yourself, I know this is not a good deal. I'm upset. But I know God has a plan for me. He also will get me through this if I'll just chill out. And personally, what I do, I get on my knees. God, I have a challenge here. Get me through it. Like you were promised to do. And that's what Paul is saying here. Be content contentment, peace. You don't have to wait to get to heaven to be content and have peace. You can have it here if you'll just let yourself do it. And tame some of your traits that are not good. My temper was mine. Not being able to let things go, that was mine. Overcame them through Jesus Christ, who strengthens me. Through which I can do all things. I don't know how many nights I've sat and recited that over and over and over and over. I bring this message this morning because I want everyone to live in peace and contentment and realize that things are going to come up. And you can't control a lot of them. Most of them, matter of fact. But you can control how you react to it. Spiritually or emotionally. Play us a song, man.